All right, today we're going to dive into a really fascinating idea called biblical federalism. Now, what is that? It's basically a model for how to run things that says we need to shift power back to our local communities. And you know what? It finds its inspiration in a very, very old story. So let's start with a huge question, maybe the question people have been asking for centuries. How do you actually build a system of government that stops tyranny in its tracks? According to the source material we're exploring today, the answer starts with rethinking who gets to hold the power. And the big answer proposed here is a single, powerful principle: federalism. The core idea is that if you want to prevent tyranny, you have to be intentional about decentralizing power. You got to spread it out, not let it get all bunched up in one place. So, what does that actually look like? Well, think of it less like a top-down pyramid, where all the power sits at the very peak, and more like a network. In a federalist system, you're deliberately sharing power between a central national government and all the smaller local units, like states or towns. And this, right here, this is the heart of the argument. Dividing up power isn't just about making things run a little smoother. No, it's a deliberate defense mechanism. By spreading authority out, you're creating these natural roadblocks that make it incredibly hard for any one person or group to just grab total control. Now, you might be thinking this is all some modern political theory, but the source we're looking at points way, way back to a much older blueprint. It's an ancient leadership strategy that's called the Moses model. The whole model is really based on this piece of advice from the book of Exodus, and the instruction is super clear. Don't let one person try to do everything. Instead, you build a layered system of government. You find good people and make them leaders over groups of thousands, hundreds, fifties, and even tens. It's like a practical blueprint for delegating authority. And here's how that whole structure actually works. You've got Moses at the top, of course, but, and this is the critical part, he doesn't try to solve every single little problem himself. He picks other capable leaders, and they're the ones who handle the smaller, day-to-day stuff. Only the really big, thorny issues make their way up the chain to him. It's really an ancient system of management and triage. Okay, so that's the ancient model, but what does the story about Moses have to do with us today? Well, the source argues that this exact same logic explains why having strong local government is so vital. It's all about the power of the local. And this brings us to a really fundamental question. Why is it that local government often feels so much more accountable? What is it about being close to home that changes the whole dynamic between the people in charge and everyone else? Well, the answer really comes down to three pretty simple things. First, your local leaders are basically your neighbors. You might literally see them at the grocery store. Because they're closer, they're just more accessible. You can actually go talk to them, and that accessibility creates real accountability. When leaders know they have to face you directly, it's a whole lot easier for the public to speak up and get things changed. And there's another huge benefit to this local focus. It helps protect minorities. Think about it. When one single central government can't just impose a one-size-fits-all policy on every single person, it gives different communities the freedom to govern themselves based on their own unique needs and values. So this isn't just some abstract theory. The source material actually lays out a really clear plan for action. It gives us steps on how anyone can start strengthening local power right where they are. The plan is a pretty straightforward three-step process. First, just go to a local government meeting. City council, school board, whatever. Just show up and see how it works. Second, do a little homework. Learn the difference between what your state government does and what the federal government does so you know who's actually in charge of what. And third, be ready to resist centralization when it doesn't make sense. That just means asking tough questions anytime you see power getting shifted further and further away from your community. And all this leaves us with one last big question to think about. When you look at the systems that run our lives, things like education, healthcare, the economy, where, if anywhere, do you think centralization has gone too far? It's a really good question to chew on. Thanks for tuning in.